Number 6 this past season was CJ Abrams. He finished 33rd overall in Roto. He was the number 7 shortstop in head-to-head points leagues. He just turned 23 years old in October, and he hit 245. He had 18 home runs, 83 runs scored, 47 stolen bases. That was the 5th most in all of baseball. We know that CJ Abrams does not walk very much at all, a 5% walk rate, but does make a good amount of contact. Strikeout rate just 19%, excuse me. But he is a tough one to figure out, Scott. His season basically changed. Once CJ Abrams was moved to the leadoff spot, that happened early in July. Up until that point, he was batting .233 with 7 homers and 11 steals. After moving to leadoff, CJ Abrams played 73 games. He hit .256 with 11 home runs, 36 steals over the final 73 games played. Just crazy stuff. Was running wild. It's really backloaded by a monster July, and then he wasn't so great from August 1st on. I have my mind is like spinning. My head is spinning, Scott, trying to figure out CJ Abrams. He's terrible against lefties. His on-base percentage is not good, but he was a former top prospect, and he just stole 47 bases. So who's to say that he just doesn't continue to get better?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I hear you on that, and I keep the more I draft, the more I see other people's drafts, the more I think, gosh, I have CJ Abrams too low. Because I mean, the thing is, I do think this transformation we saw from him as a base stealer, where he, from you gave the numbers, but basically he was on a 70 steal pace basically for the last 3 months of the season, and I do think that is closer to what we should expect from CJ Abrams going forward. I mean, that was what he was billed as coming up through the minors. That was supposed to be his carrying tool. That and the hit tool was considered really good, and we haven't seen that play up to maximum effect yet. But he was supposed to be a huge base stealer, and it just wasn't there for the first year and a half of his big league career. And then suddenly the light went on, and he began to make full use of it. And I think that's legit. I think part of the disconnect here is how valuable are stolen bases. I think we're still trying to figure that out, because they are so much. They're more plentiful now. And in the past, we'd see a guy with 60 to 70 steal potential, and that could carry you in the category. And that's not the case anymore. You're going to accidentally wind up with enough other steals that it could potentially be overkill if you invest a 4th round pick in a guy who's primarily providing you speed. And it just ends up being more than you needed. And you could have used that very premium pick on something a little scarcer. I'm not saying there are a lot of 60 steal guys out there, but I'm saying I'm saying unless you're going to be committed to avoiding steals for the rest of your draft, you may end up paying an upcharge for something that's not actually going to be that useful for you. If you get what I mean. Because okay, he's not a total zero for power, CJ Abrams. He hit the 18 home runs, but the batting average is an issue. He's not a great on-base guy, even batting high in the Nationals lineup. It's unlikely he scores 100 runs because he walks so infrequently, and he got on base at a 300 clip exactly this past year. And he could continue to develop as a hitter. Like I said, the hit tool was supposed to be a major part of CJ Abrams' profile, and we haven't seen it fully come through yet. But I don't know. There's a lot of really good shortstops we haven't talked about yet. And I feel like CJ Abrams is pretty limited compared to them. He has one amazing skill. But again, like if you don't optimize that skill correctly in the team you're building, it's going to be kind of a waste.
I do think, specifically in a Roto Categories League, CJ Abrams has to be drafted with the right team. And So far, I've seen him go in the 4th round of the 2 drafts that I've done. I was one of the people to take him in the 4th round. And I think on a team where you take like a Yordan Alvarez or a Corey Seager, a Matt Olson, or dare I say 2 of those guys, right? If you start your team with Judge and Seager or Judge and Soto or, any of the 2 I just mentioned, and then you want to grab Abrams in the 4th round, I think something like that makes sense. You
Yeah.
also realize you are depending on CJ Abrams to get you a huge chunk of your steals. And if he gets hurt, all those go away, right? Like you're putting your eggs in one really big basket here with CJ Abrams. So
Right.
he is
Well,
he is a fascinating player to figure out.
And to further the point you were making about who should be taking him in round 4, the guy who took him in round 4 in this mock we just did, it's our buddy the Welsh, actually. He took Trey Turner in round 1.
He did.
So, I mean, that seems like overkill for stolen bases to me, not to mention overkill at shortstop, because you got a base stealing shortstop, with 2 of your first 4 picks. That's a lot of other categories you're neglecting. And I don't know. I didn't feel like that was the most optimal choice he could have made in round 4, even if there's certainly justification for taking CJ Abrams in round 4 in that scoring format.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun one to talk about this all season. Again, it's CJ Abrams we're talking about. I know you mentioned the hit tool was one of his carrying tools through the minors, and Fangraphs had his upside as a 70 grade hit tool. They currently have him at a 50 out of 70. That's where he's currently at in his progression. So again, there is a chance he gets better. Maybe he hits 260, 270, 20 homers, 50, 60 steals. I mean, that is a really, really awesome player. But
yeah,
you do have to pay a premium as of now if you do want to get CJ Abrams on your team.